Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Matt Garvey and we are here to talk about making comics today. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to write for comics and not for movies. And what I mean by this is if you go into your local comic book shop and you pick a few of those independent comics off the wall, which you totally should do, every now and then you're going to read one of these books and you're going to think to yourself, it seems like, the creators want this to be a film or a TV series. Anyone else think that? And it's true, some creators, are there, they're trying to impress the executives, at streaming services, at film companies, because, they want that IP turned into the next big blockbuster. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with that. And if that's the kind of creator that you want to be, more power to you. Hopefully, this video will help you. But the problem you're going to find is if you tackle your comic book story as if it was a movie straight out of the gate, you're going to come unstuck, because even though they are similar, they all have an Act 1, Act 2 and Act 3, unless we're talking about, Marvel and DC books, because they never resolve in an Act 3, it just goes back to Act 1 again. Most independent comics, have a beginning, middle and end. But if we're looking at films, for example, all films have what's called a midpoint. And this is something that happens in the second act that drives the narrative to its natural conclusion, to the climax in that third and final act. So if we're looking at film, this is part of, Jaws, where Sheriff Brody's son nearly gets eaten by the shark. And based on that, he forces the mayor to finally pay Quint to go and hunt the shark. That's the midpoint of that movie. It's something that pushes that protagonist into that third act where they go and kill the shark. That's what that is. Or, to use another Spielberg example, this is Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indy finally, discovers the Ark itself, then has it taken away by the Nazis, and then Indy spends the rest of that film trying to get that Ark back and stop, the world coming to an end. That's the midpoint. That's the driving force that pushes that second act into that climax in the third act where all the Nazis get their faces melted off. That's the midpoint. But the problem you're going to have is if you try and apply this structure to a comic, you're going to come unstuck, because that means your midpoint is not actually going to happen until the end of issue 2 and leading into issue 3. And unless you're a seasoned comic veteran and you've got thousands and thousands of fans that are going to buy every book that you do, and they're going to give you, 2 or 3 issues, to tell that slow burn of a story and get to that really meaty midpoint, so, to push the narrative on, you need to come up with a way to keep your audience invested in your story. Now, we have spoken about hooks before on this channel, and I'll link to those videos in the description as well. But if you try the film method, you are going to come unstuck. So what you need to do is you need to create mini midpoints at the end of issue 1, the midpoint at end of issue 2, and another mini midpoint at the end of issue 3 to drive to that natural conclusion in your third act. Because what you'll find is, you're going to have your core audience that are going to support your work no matter what, which is great. You're going to get speculators that are going to buy your issue 1, because that's what speculators do. And you're going to find this new audience, hopefully, that are going to start supporting your work. And this is industry standard. This is not just on your books. It's happened on my books as well. What you'll find is the sales of subsequent issues, 2, 3, 4 and onwards, tend to drop by about 30 to 40%. So what you need to do is you need to give those readers a reason to come back. You need to give them a hook, a mini little climax or a cliffhanger or a surprise at the ends of issue 1 and issue 3 to get them to come back to finish that story. So this is how movies and comics differ in structure, okay? There's a lot more other bits that we could talk about, which I'll mention in subsequent videos, but I wanted to keep this nice and short and sweet, just so, when you're going and plotting your comics, you can have this in mind and go, do you know what? It's the end of issue 1, I need something. It's the end of issue 2, I need a midpoint. What is going to push my protagonist to that final act? And at the end of issue 3, kind of needs something else to get people to come back for that final issue as well. So hopefully that's helped. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a like, share and a subscribe. I will see you in the next video. And remember, if I can make comics, anyone can.